Okay, so none of this is really new to us. It's we've done it before, and with the exception of changing this diffuse for a principled, and not having these connected in, it's the basic texture setup we've been using in every project so far. And for the most part, it works fine. It has its limitations. Number one, as we discussed, the quality of the source texture. It's going to affect the quality of your bake texture. Another disadvantage, and let's choose Suzanne here and pick up that same material, is we will get seams. If we go into UV editing here, come around the back here and let's open up our grid texture. Okay, wherever the edge of an island is, so if we look at the back of the head, which is around here where this red will join this purple, we're going to get these seams, and even if we use seamless texture, we're still going to get seams. So that is a major disadvantage to using external textures in your materials. Okay, let's delete this material from Suzanne. Let's add a new material. So we'll just go new, call that material 002. Alright. Now in Blender, there is another, not another, but certainly a few more texture types. So let me first of all do screencast keys. So if we go Shift A to add, and if we look in texture, we got some texture types here: brick texture, textured, environment, gradient. IES is a special kind of texture for lighting. We'll come to that in another lesson. Image texture, which we've been using. Magic Musgrave, noise, point, sky, Voronoi, wave, and white noise. Okay, so for example, let's add Voronoi. Okay, this is a specific type of texture on its own. So if I plug the color into the color, you see we're getting this pattern of cells, which are kind of like multicolored, and limited use on its own. But when you start to use these textures as part of a process for making what's called a procedural texture, you'll start to see the advantages. One advantage is because it's generated, okay, it'll always be sharp. You won't get any blurriness. And another advantage is if we look around the back of the head now, it's seamless, okay, because it's generated onto the object, so we don't get seams. So no matter what your UV is, it will bake as a seamless texture. You won't get any seams on your object. So it is a good idea whenever possible to use generated textures. You'll get far better quality results. Alright, now I'm not going to use this Voronoi in the base color. Okay. If we look at our material output, we've got three sockets here: surface, volume, and displacement. Surface obviously is the color texture, the diffuse texture, or diffuse glossy, whatever. It is the texture being mapped to the surface. Volume is more to do with smoke and fluids and that kind of stuff, where you will have like a three-dimensional see-through type of thing. And then we've also got displacement, and what displacement will do is it will react with the normals, with the way the light bounces off an object, and it'll give the impression of actually displacing the object, of actually putting some three-dimensional geometry onto the object. So let me move this Voronoi down here, and if we try and match colour to colour on the sockets. If we put position into displacement, you'll see we're getting this kind of checkered, fractured thing going on. Okay, also got some things going on with the normals here, so let's see if we can quickly do something about that. We're in object mode. Let's apply this modifier, so that's showing a bit better. Alright, we have a few things we can play with on the Voronoi. One is number of dimensions. Basically, this is in what planes it will work in. For the most part, leave it 3D. This has to do with kind of like the smoothness of bloody phone. If we with the smoothness of the patterns, you can see there, you know, where we got very smooth edges as opposed to very kind of sharp edges. And distance metric, that's a really kind of obscure one. But what I did want to come to is scale. So I can scale this fracture pattern down, or actually scale it up to make much more kind of scales. Alright, so if I want some control over this, I can add a couple of things. Let's add a couple of maps. So that's under converter maps nodes. So the first maps node I'm going to add, and I'm going to change that to multiply. Scroll out a bit. And as I change its value, you can see how much deeper the cracks are getting. Okay. But also, as I'm changing this up, it's also affecting the kind of faceting of the geometry. So let's bring it to about there, and we can see we've got these cracks going on. Alright, I can add another math node, or I can duplicate this one with Shift D. Let's add this up here, and let's change this one to power. Okay, what we're getting is pretty much the same thing. This will change kind of look, but one of the problems we got here is we said we really need to match color to color on the sockets. So if I do this with distance rather than position, and let's get rid of that position. Okay, we'll see how we got this much more kind of fractured, smoother look. Alright, my power is probably too high there, or my multiply is probably too high. Let's bring that to about 0.02 or so, maybe a bit higher, 0.12. Okay, you see how we're getting this kind of fractured, this kind of dimpled look here. I'm going to change the base color to black for now, so we get a better view of what's going on. Alright, so we're getting this kind of dimpled effect, and we're doing that with the multiply. Okay, so bring it to somewhere about there, 0.12. Now with the power, I can kind of select the smoothness of it, how much it's affecting it. It's giving me that extra control, so I want something like this. Alright, I want to move my scale up a little bit, so let's bring the scale up. I'm going to bring it up quite a bit here. And what I'm actually going for is like a leather look here. So I'm trying to get the scale to that of the grain and the leather, and that's looking okay to me. The only problem is that everything is kind of scalloped out rather than raised up. Okay, so I need to do something about that. So I'm going to move this across, give myself a bit of room, and move this across and this across. So what I want to try and do is invert this, so instead of being scalloped, it's raised. So let's have a look and see what we got. Under converter, we've got, what could we use? We could use a color ramp. Or under color, we could have an invert. Let's try the invert and see how that's kind of raised it up rather than scalloped it out. Let's bring the factor down. Bring this up a little bit. How's the power looking? Right. So what I've got now is quite a convincing looking procedural leather. Okay. I could obviously, you know, if I wanted a finer grain, I could increase the scale. And if I wanted a coarser grain, I could obviously decrease the scale to what I need. Okay, that's looking pretty good round about there for me. So just really with a couple of nodes, using the Voronoi texture, inverting it so we're getting it to look like the right way, like the grain is raised rather than depressed, and using a multiplying power just to control the strength of things into displacement. Now we haven't actually added any more geometry to this model. It's exactly the same. It's just this displacement section is giving the appearance of a lot more geometry than what's actually there. So I think what I'm going to do now, just so you can see that this will be seamless, is I'm going to bake this out. So let me add a texture, image texture, and let me add a new texture to bake to. So we'll call it leather bake. Okay, I don't want alpha on it. I'll just leave it blank at 1024. Right, how are we looking in rendered mode on this? Could probably bring my lighting up a little bit more. So let me select one of my two lights and go to material. Let's turn the strength up a bit. Maybe down a little bit. Somewhere about there. Okay. So I've got this texture selected. I'm going to go to my render tab. I'm in cycles, and we'll go ahead and bake. Let me just check samples. 128. We'll try at 128, see how it looks. Okay, and let's go ahead and bake this, and I'm going to pause while it's baking. Okay, so that's finished baking, and we look at it full screen here. The actual texture, you can see that's baked, and we've actually got some pretty good detail on it, and that's at a 1024. Let's see how it looks on the object. So I want to put this output texture, feed it back into the material node, sphere viewer node, and with Node Wrangler installed, it's control shift and click on that object, okay, and it changes this to an output. So let's go to textured, our look dev rather, and let's make sure these scene lights are off. Okay, let me hide these other objects so we can just have a look at Cezanne. And this is the bake texture as applied.